Good morning, I'm Trevor Alt.
And I'm Mona Kosar-Abdi. Here are the top 5 things to know on this Veterans Day. Number 1, former UN Ambassador Nikki Haley is speaking out.
She's accusing former Secretary of State Rex Tillerson and former White House Chief of Staff John Kelly of trying to recruit her to undermine the president. She says the two claim they were resisting President Trump to, quote, save the country.
Meanwhile, public hearings in the impeachment investigation get underway on Wednesday. Number 2, breaking news overseas. Protests in Hong Kong have escalated to a dangerous new level.
Police opened fire and hit at least one protester today as chaos erupted across the city. The man is reportedly in critical condition.
A man was also set on fire. The anti-China protests in the city have now lasted for 6 months.
At number 3, an Arctic cold front is moving through the Midwest, bringing snow and rain.
Winter is here. The morning commute is a mess in cities like Chicago, and behind the snow and rain, the bitter cold will arrive, stretching into the deep south this week.
The temperature is expected to drop by nearly 40 degrees in parts of Texas tomorrow. We head to New Jersey for number 4. 2 people are dead after a shocking crash. A Porsche slammed through the 2nd floor of an office building.
Both victims, a 22-year-old man and a 23-year-old man, were in the car. Police say the Porsche hit the median and went airborne. No word on how fast the car was going.
The building was empty at the time, but was set to open a few hours later.
And finally, number 5. Trevor is devastated because this week your Instagram likes could disappear.
Everyone knows I'm an influencer. The platform is hiding them on some U.S. accounts on a trial basis. This is an effort to make the site less of a competition.
You'll still be able to see how many likes your post gets, but other people, they won't. So you're going to have to find a new stream of income after Instagram takes away your likes.
Yeah, that's a shame. All the following that I built.
I know.
All the effort that I put in.
All 200.
They're going to be devastated.
Loyal followers. All right, well, let's transition a little bit. We're going to get to that big story. The explosive allegation from former Ambassador Nikki Haley. She claims that the former Secretary of State and White House Chief of Staff tried to recruit her to undermine President Trump to, quote, save the country. Haley made it clear that she plans to support the president in 2020 as the impeachment investigation goes public this week. ABC's Megan Tavrizian joins us with the new details. Good morning, Megan.
Good morning, Mona and Trevor. Public hearings in the impeachment inquiry begin Wednesday. First up will be William Taylor, America's top diplomat in Ukraine. He's already testified behind closed doors that it was his clear understanding there was a quid pro quo.
The impeachment inquiry about to enter a new phase, going public this week. Expected up first, William Taylor, the top diplomat in Ukraine, who already testified behind closed doors. It was clear millions in military aid would be withheld unless there was an investigation into the president's political rivals. An arrangement Taylor called crazy.
This is a very strong case of bribery.
Republicans want to hear from the anonymous whistleblower who first raised the flag.
If they don't call the whistleblower in the House, this thing is dead on arrival in the Senate.
This comes as former UN Ambassador Nikki Haley, in a new memoir out this week, claims former Secretary of State Rex Tillerson and White House Chief of Staff John Kelly undermined and ignored the president because they were trying to save the country. Haley spoke to CBS Sunday Morning about that exchange.
It definitely happened.
It absolutely happened. And instead of saying that to me, they should have been saying that to the president, not asking me to join them on their sidebar plan. It should have been, go tell the president what your differences are and quit if you don't like what he's doing. But to undermine a president is really a very dangerous thing, and it goes against the Constitution, and it goes against what the American people want, and it was offensive.
And now the New York Times is reporting a lawyer for one of Rudy Giuliani's indicted associates told them Giuliani directed him to deliver an ultimatum to the Ukrainian government that the U.S. would freeze aid if the country did not investigate Joe Biden or his son Hunter. There is no evidence Joe or Hunter Biden have done any wrongdoing, and President Trump and Rudy Giuliani have repeatedly denied these claims. Mona.
All right, thank you, Megan, for that report. And you can watch those public impeachment hearings starting Wednesday right here on ABC News Live.
Well, in other news, the FBI has been invited by authorities in Mexico to join the investigation into the deadly ambush of American families that attacked last Monday. It's being blamed on a Mexican drug cartel. It left 9 women and children dead, and we're hearing exclusively from a man who lost his wife and 2 of his kids in the violence. David Langford says his 13-year-old son Devin is a hero because after the shootings, he hid his siblings and walked 14 miles to get help. Langford says now he's leaving Mexico with the rest of his family.
Not only have I lost a wife and 2 children, but I'm having to move the rest of my family with really no place to go at this point. I believe in forgiveness, but I also believe in justice, and forgiveness doesn't rob justice. And justice, you don't get justice too much in Mexico.
Walked a little while till we couldn't carry him no more, and so we put him behind a bush, and I wasn't hit or nothing, so I started walking.
Well, 8 children, some of them infants, survived that attack, and you can hear more from his hero son later today on ABC News Live.
And the search is on for a former Marine who's wanted in connection with the murder of a man in Southwest Virginia. Authorities say Michael Alexander Brown, you see him there, shot and killed a man who lived with Brown's mother. He's believed to be armed with a high-powered rifle and may have access to other weapons. Brown was last seen on a store surveillance camera on Saturday.
Well, now to the latest twist in the race for the White House. Democrats bracing for the likelihood of a new competitor with some pretty deep pockets.
Oh yeah, former New York Mayor Michael Bloomberg appears poised to make a late entrance into that crowded field, armed with his $50 billion fortune. ABC's Rachel Scott has reaction from the campaign trail.
With the first vote less than 90 days away, the Democratic candidates for president are bracing for a shakeup. Billionaire Michael Bloomberg setting the stage to jump in the race. And the national early frontrunner, former Vice President Joe Biden, saying, bring it on.
I have no problem with him getting in the race. And in terms of he's running because of me, last polls I looked at, I'm pretty far ahead.
Sources close to Bloomberg say he's worried that the current field of candidates won't be able to beat Donald Trump, and he thinks he can. But progressives are criticizing the former New York City mayor for relying on his immense personal wealth to find a path to the nomination.
I think that our elections should not be something that are bought by billionaires.
Sorry, you ain't gonna buy this election.
This weekend, Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders on a multi-stop swing through Iowa.
Hello, Iowa!
Campaigning for the first time with Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, a key endorsement for his campaign. I sat down with the two of them and asked Ocasio-Cortez why she's supporting Sanders over Senator Elizabeth Warren.
It's about a personal story and a personal history, and I think the senator's history and commitment is unique.
And Sanders unleashed on the Bloomberg campaign plan to skip out on the earliest voting states, Iowa, New Hampshire, South Carolina, and Nevada.
When you're worth $50 billion, I guess you don't have to have town meetings. You don't have to talk to ordinary people. What you do is you take out, I guess, a couple of $1 billion and you buy the state of California.
And an unconventional strategy from Mayor Bloomberg, but he clearly understands that those key early voting states only make up a fraction of the delegates that he would need to clinch the party's nomination. But he also knows that the rest of the Democratic field has a head start there. So if he does get into this race, his advisors say that they are confident that he can win in the states that vote on Super Tuesday and beyond. Rachel Scott, ABC News, Washington.
Our thanks to Rachel. Now to the Apple credit card that's being called sexist. Men are being given higher spending limits than women, even when the women have better credit scores. Apple's co-founder, Steve Wozniak's among those complaining, saying his limit's 10 times that of his wife, even though all their assets are joint. Goldman Sachs is behind the new credit card and says it doesn't make decisions based on gender.
And get ready for something rare in the skies today.
The planet Mercury is going to pass between the Earth and the Sun. This is an event called a transit. It is scheduled to start at 7:35 Eastern this morning. It will last about 5.5 hours. Scientists say Mercury will be visible as a tiny pinprick across the Sun's surface, and then the next transit's not going to happen for another 13 years. We haven't yet determined how to look at it.
Without staring directly
right.
into the sun like you were told not to. Mercury is in Renegade, retro.
Mercury is in Renegade. It's gone
here.
rogue. And it's in retrograde also.
Hide your wife, hide your kids.
People tell me that it means something.
Yes.
I haven't yet determined what that is.
Check your DMs.
Always. Coming up, the turkey takeover in a New Jersey town.
What those angry birds are doing that has a baseball star up in arms.
Plus, a World War II mystery solved 75 years later. The American submarine finally found after this. Well, welcome back. Today is, of course, Veterans Day, when the nation formally thanks those who have served in the armed forces. And President Trump is here in New York, where he'll be delivering remarks at the city's Veterans Day parade. There will be commemorations and observances from coast to coast. And today marks the start of a new campaign by the U.S. Army that's aimed at filling its ranks. ABC's Brad Milkey has the details. Brad?
Hey, yeah, as we honor veterans today, the inevitable question is, where will the armed forces find their next generation of service members? Well, this morning, the U.S. Army is announcing a new ad campaign, and this is a lot different from the ones you grew up with. Think about it. Army ads 15 years ago were all about combat. It was right after September 11th. Well, a high school senior graduating next year wasn't alive during September 11th, which is why the Army is blitzing this new message on social media. ABC's Louis Martinez covers the Pentagon, and he says the visuals here are almost out of a Marvel movie. The slogan is "Who's Your Warrior?" But the message is less about firepower and more about cyber power.
What they're highlighting is non-traditional military roles. So one of the people that they're highlighting is a cyber warrior, a U.S. Army captain who specializes in cyber warfare. Things that are not traditional in the U.S. Army, and they're highlighting them in these campaigns. Typically, we've seen over the last couple of years, they've been focusing on combat roles. They're still going to be talking about that, but now they're looking to see these non-traditional roles. They want to surprise their audience as they're thumbing through on their smartphones. They want to see, oh, look, a DNA specialist. Oh, here's somebody who works in cyber. And, oh, wait, they're Army soldiers?
And one other thing I thought was interesting, Louis said in previous generations, you had a World War II veteran in your neighborhood. You had a Vietnam veteran in your family. And those people were really instrumental in convincing young people to serve. They were the original influencers. Well, now the Army is turning to online influencers instead. We'll have a lot more on Start Here later this morning. Listen on Apple Podcasts or your favorite podcasting app. Mona, Trevor?
Thank you, Brad. Well, now to breaking news overnight from the ongoing protests in Hong Kong. Police there shot at least one protester at point-blank range, and the shooting was shown live on Facebook.
So let's go across the pond to Julia McFarland in the London Bureau for the latest. Julia, good morning. This is obviously a very fluid situation. To what extent does this kind of mark an escalation in this conflict between protesters and the police?
Morning, Mona. Morning, Trevor. Yeah, exactly. I mean, we have seen a protester being shot by live round before. A protester has actually died. That happened last week after scuffles in a car park where riot police and protesters clashed. So what we've seen before this latest incident today was we saw a protester was shot by police. He recovered. A protester last week died after scuffles with riot police, and that death of a protester for the first time over the weekend led everyone to fear that violence was going to climax once again in Hong Kong, and that appears to be the case. Now, with what's happened today is that a policeman was grappling with a protester in a central district, and he had already drawn his gun while he had a protester in a kind of headlock. And then when another protester walked towards him, he was all dressed in black and he was wearing a mask. Now, he was quite clearly unarmed. The footage on social media shows him with his arms by his sides, not sort of carrying any visible weapon. But then he moved quickly towards the policeman who already had his weapon drawn, and at that moment he opened fire, shooting him in the torso. Now, he was rushed off to hospital. He has undergone surgery. Police say he is now in a stable condition. But something else that has also happened today is a man who is believed to be a pro-Beijing supporter. He has allegedly been doused with some kind of flammable liquid and set on fire by protesters. He is also in hospital. He is in a critical condition.
Situation definitely escalating there, but we want to turn now to Bolivia, where President Evo Morales abruptly stepped down yesterday after weeks of sometimes violent protests there over his disputed election. So, Julia, where does this leave Bolivia?
Right, turbulent times for South America's poorest country, Bolivia. Evo Morales, this is a very divisive situation in Bolivia because his supporters call this a coup and his opponents say that this is a step in the right direction for democracy. Now, what's happened is he's resigned after 14 years of power because the elections last month, independent international monitors from the Organization of American States, that's a sort of a United Nations body made up of all the states in the Americas, North and South America. They said that they had found evidence of manipulations in the elections. There were widespread reports of election fraud, and so there were weeks of protests in Bolivia. The army has now called on Evo Morales to step down after all of this instability and chaos following those reports of election fraud. But this is a turning point for Bolivia and for Morales. He was the first indigenous leader of the country, and he is credited with tackling a lot of inequality during his time in power.
Julia, I hate to spend the entire time we have you on awful and unfortunate stories, but that's kind of what we're doing. It's getting really cold in New York. I'd imagine the same is true in London. In Australia, they're headed into the summer months, and we know that they're at New South Wales. They've declared a state of emergency. They have wildfires that have destroyed more than 150 homes, 3,000 square miles. In what the emergency services minister says could be the most dangerous bushfire week the nation's ever seen. I mean, we've had some wildfires over here in the U.S. How bad is it over there?
I mean, guys, it's kind of hard to sort of put into picture sort of how widespread these fires are in Australia, which is, of course, a huge island. But just get this, there is the blazes have scorched almost 2.5 million acres. I can't even picture how big that is, but I'm sure it covers certainly one or two states of the United States. That's more than 120 blazes covering that area. Now, since Australia made a new sort of fires categorization a decade ago, this has now for the first time hit the unprecedented level. They've never had that before. So Queensland and New South Wales, they've declared a state of emergency. As you say, more than 150 houses have been damaged. You know, the Conservative government is also coming under intense criticism in Australia because they are refusing to say whether these wildfires have been impacted by climate change. But a huge operation underway to try and get these fires out of control. But as you say, these are the summer months. So much of Australian territory, particularly in Queensland and New South Wales, is vast landscapes, which is very prone to bushfires. So it is a huge operation for the Australians to try and tackle those blazes.
Julia McFarland in our London bureau, always so informative. Julia, thanks for your time. We'll try to give you cheerier stories next time if we can.
Hopefully tomorrow.
Yeah, ideally.
All right, well, let's check our notifications, starting with a team effort at a Waffle House when there was a lone employee working the late night shift. This man is Employee of the Year. Customers had to step in and help him bus tables and wash dishes.
Pretty impressive scene. Well, next, the turkey takeover in one town in New Jersey. And
it's gotten so bad that a baseball star is now crying foul. About 60 turkeys have been running wild in this town on the Jersey Shore, breaking windows and attacking residents. No, it's not Snooki.
No, that's a different terror. Now, Todd Frazier of the New York Mets has tweeted a picture showing turkeys surrounding his Jeep. It's serious business. He says they have ruined his cars and they have trashed his yard.
What do you call a gang of turkeys? Animal control officials say they're not licensed to trap the turkeys because they're wild animals. Frazier is now asking the governor to do something about it.
Interesting. Well, those turkeys do need to watch out because Thanksgiving is just a couple weeks away, and a study has just released some important info for those who are cooking the big meal. Maybe don't work too hard on the cranberry sauce.
Yeah, that's our question of the day. What's your least favorite Thanksgiving food? Give us your Thanksgiving hot takes in the comments or tweet us at ABC News Live. I don't know what cranberry has ever done to you people because it's been a staple. It shows up every year.
You can count on it. You can set your watch to cranberry sauce every year. So the reason that we mentioned cranberry sauce, so they did a survey of what's your least favorite.
Right.
And cranberry sauce was the winner, I suppose, or the loser, and that 29% of people said cranberry sauce, their least favorite.
Right.
Green bean casserole was number 2 with 24%. I've said it earlier, my Thanksgiving hot take is that I just don't think overall it's that good. I think people like the tradition, which boosts the flavor. But if it was that good, we'd have it all the time.
Spicing things up. He wants to start some drama.
So if you have a
Monday.
spicier take than that, we would love to hear it. Or if you would just want to tell me what an idiot I am. A lot of people don't hesitate to do that already, so join
No, you really want to get the conversation going. Send a picture or post a picture of your mac and cheese on Twitter. People will roast you.
Okay.
I promise you. That is the one most divisive topic on Twitter this time of year.
Okay, they'll keep that in the back pocket next time I want a good roasting. There you go. Next up, a message in a bottle has been found in France after 10 years at sea. This was off the coast of the United States. It was written by a young boy. His name's Max. Threw it into the ocean back in 2010. It wandered around, for all we knew, hung out with some sharks, maybe some whales, made its way over to the land of Au Francais, and they connected over social media. Look at that. The message survived.
And the man actually wrote back.
Yeah, they're pals now via social media.
Speaking of social media, this girl has taken social media by storm, and she's only just 4 years old. She's a rap star. Her name is Zahara, and Zahara Bean, and this is her at the Warriors game. Take a listen. Who first got me onto this song?
This right here? Yeah. I mean, it's a jam. She's got a future.
Yeah.
For 4 years old to have that level of rhythm is really impressive.
Her past isn't very extensive, so she has to have a future.
That's true. That's all that there is.
All right, let's move on to a discovery off the coast of Japan that has solved a World War II mystery.
A team of explorers has just found a submarine that went down in battle, and it wasn't seen until now. Here's ABC's Tom Yamas.
1,400 feet below the surface, off the coast of Japan, a team of ocean explorers just discovered the resting place of 80 American sailors. This is the first time the USS Grayback has been seen in 75 years. And two of the people to first learn the news, relatives of those Americans who went down with the submarine.
We haven't broadcast this, and we wanted to be the first ones to tell you this is the Grayback.
Oh my God.
All right. And we wanted to do this in person. All right? This is where your uncles are.
Gloria Herney, who lost her uncle Raymond Parks, an electrician's mate, first class, and Kathy Taylor. She lost her uncle and godfather, John Patrick King, an electrician's mate, third class. The USS Grayback, a World War II sub, credited with sinking 14 enemy ships. It set out from Pearl Harbor in 1944 to patrol the seas south of Japan, never to return again.
I committed from the very beginning, when a little girl, that I was going to find him or follow him or keep his memory alive to whatever I could do.
Is this book
We met Kathy and Gloria at the Carnegie Science Center in Pittsburgh.
There's a book I read and it said these ships are known only to God, but now we know where the Grayback is.
The Grayback, you can even see the plaque intact after all these years, discovered south of Okinawa. Tim Taylor and wife Christine Dennison discovered it with their team as part of their Lost 52 project. These two explorers have now found 5 of the 52 lost U.S. subs during World War II.
With the technology that we're using and the ability to cover large swaths of ground, we're looking at potential to find several more.
That cutting-edge technology includes submersibles that can reach the ocean floor, automated to help create 3D renderings of the sub, providing clues of its final moments.
It's very vital that we remember them and that they feel that they haven't been forgotten, that their sacrifice wasn't in vain.
A tribute to those that gave the ultimate sacrifice. And for the families, the discovery is a type of small remedy for all those years of pain.
And he's come back.
He's come back. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
So it turned out the whole problem was that years ago they had a Japanese information that was supposed to guide them to where the ship was, and it was mistranslated. And so for years and decades they just thought it should be over here in the middle of the sea, and it wasn't. One digit turned out to be the difference.
Checking the wrong location the whole time.
Measure twice, cut once, people.
I feel like that's a Thanksgiving recipe that I'm just not aware of.
Maybe.
Well, coming up, we'll tell you about the Veterans Day celebration going on around the country today.
Plus, we're going to hear from a World War II veteran whose family never knew he was part of the D-Day invasion. That's coming up after this.
Measure twice, or measure
Cut
once?
once. Measure twice. Here's what to watch out for today. In just a few hours, the 100th annual Veterans Day Parade steps off here in New York City. President Trump will open the ceremonies honoring all who have served in the military, and he'll also lay a wreath at the Eternal Light Memorial in Manhattan's Madison Square Park. Plus, don't forget to tune in to The Debrief for an update on all our top stories, and then The Briefing Room for a breakdown of the latest headlines in politics. Well, one of the many vets being honored today is as old as the New York City celebration itself.
That's right. Lucian Baskin of Texas turned 100 in September, but until recently, most of his family members didn't even know that he took part in one of the most critical events of World War II. Mr. Baskin was part of the more than 350,000 Allied military personnel who took part in the D-Day invasion in Normandy, France. He says the battle was something that he just didn't talk about.
Blessed to be here. I really do. Those were rough days, though. But it's bad to see people falling all around you and having to step over dead people. That's kind of rough and hard to get used to.
Mr. Baskin is among the fewer than 400,000 World War II veterans that are still alive. 16 million people served in that war.
Powerful story and an excellent man.
Yeah, it's hard to relive. I could see that.
Yeah, for sure. Well, we want to say thank you to all of our veterans out there, everybody who served. I'm sure everybody knows somebody in their life, their family member, friend, something like that. We're grateful for everything that you've done. The people who are serving currently, we're grateful for you as well. We hope you have a great Veterans Day and a great Monday.
Yeah, take it easy. Long week ahead.
It sure is. It always is.